Amazing Women Speak podcast, inspiring and motivating every Black woman to own, honor, and execute her amazing, individually and collectively, as it was established at birth.
I am Crystal L. Gunn, financial strategist, founder of the Amazing Woman Network, and host of Amazing Women Speak. So before we get started, do me a favor. Whether you're watching this live or definitely if you're watching this live and or if you're seeing this on replay, please share this video. This is about to be really good, and someone that you know needs to be a part of this discussion today. So it's dark in there. That's the topic, but I have to tell you how we got here. And I heard a story. Shout out to 19 Keys, because this is where I heard the story from him. I don't know if it was his original story or if he heard it from somewhere else, but I do want to give that credit. But there was a guy, I don't know, early Saturday, leaving his house, and he was going out to run some errands. And when he walked outside to get in his car, he noticed his neighbor was outside in the front yard, and you could tell she was looking for something. She was searching for something in the yard. And he just noted it, got in his car and left and went to run his errands. Well, he came back a couple hours later, and she was still outside in the front yard looking for whatever it was she was looking for. And he said, dang, it's been a couple of hours. Let me go over here and help her. And so he goes over and he says, hey, did you lose something? What are you looking for? And she was like, yeah, I lost my keys. And he said, okay, well, let me help you try to find them. And he said, well, where's the last place that you remember seeing them? And she said, oh, they're in the house. And he said, wait a minute. He said, your keys are inside, and yet you're out here looking for your keys. Why aren't you looking for them inside the house? And she said, oh, because it's dark in there. And so we have a tendency when we're trying to heal and grow that we don't want to turn inside, because it's dark in there, right? Those dark places that you've been avoiding. And so the mission is to go deep inside and bring that light and healing to those dark places. So let's talk about it. Michele, welcome to another episode. Thank you, as always, for being here. I am honored that you are my co-host every single Sunday. So let's get this discussion started the way only you can.
Ooh, that intro. My heart is feeling heavy already, because when you threw that rock, I had to say ouch.
Mm.
And so I'm really excited. My name is Michele Harper. Welcome to another episode where we get an opportunity to collectively be in space with some dope women sharing some dope stories that has the ability to make us better if we're willing to sit in the discomfort and pay attention to the things that bubble up, and then think about application after the fact. I am honored to be co-host in these conversations with my best friend, where we get to really honor Black women and all of the ways that they are amazing. As I share with you every week, this is the fastest hour of the day. So without further ado, I want to invite in the two amazing women that we have sharing the platform with us tonight. Heather, come on in here and introduce yourself.
Good day, good people. I am Hetheru, personal change coach and executive director of Encourage Me, I'm Young.
Thank you, Heather. Dr. Shenetta.
How are you, everybody, kings and queens? I am Dr. Shenetta Malkia, your empowered life queen. I'm the owner broker for the PMs of the City Realty, as well as the founder and president of Empowerment Essence, where we focus on eradicating bullying and suicide for youth and young adults.
Right? If your heart doesn't feel better already, knowing that we're in company with women who have a story to share that could share information that will make life better for you, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. Facebook, please join us in this conversation as these women share their stories and share insights to help us think about how do we sit in the dark and find ways to the light. Drop questions in the chat. We will invite you in. If you have thoughts that you want to share, questions you want to share, please utilize this hour to begin to get some of the tools and resources that you will need in order to discover what are the dark places and how do you escape So let's talk about it. Dr. Shenetta, the dark places and the ways in which we deny that we need to do that inner deep work, and the fear that's present when we have to sit in that space and we have to begin to think about what it means to pay attention to me and the dark spaces I'm in and the ways that I avoid it. So I really am asking you to help me be better personally, looking for tools and resources, because I recognize even for myself, right? That inner work is so hard because it's the darkest of dark places. And sometimes I'd rather sit in a false light than discover,
That's
right?
good.
Right?
That's good. That was good. A false light. That was good. That was real good. No, like I'm just going to jump in right there because that part, the false lights, and that comes from the false information, false traumas, things that we've gone through, the different experiences, the lies that we've been told, the things that have been spoken over us. And in those dark places, we gravitate to the things that are normal to us, to things that seem like they're okay, but they're really not okay, to things that seem like they're helping us, but they're further and destroy us. So the false light, that thing hit home. That thing is at home. Wow, in the dark. So for me, in the dark really starts from a place of discovery. In my dark place is where I discovered who I really was. And in that dark place is also where I uncovered some of the traumas that I was going through. So it's not easy being a woman of color, one, and then just being a woman in general to really start opening up about those dark spaces, because we haven't always had a safe space. Let's just keep that 100. We haven't had a safe space to come out of a dark space to go into a safe space to really open up. And we're starting to have some of these conversations. But even in those conversations, sometimes we go into that false light where somebody acts as though they're there to help us and there to listen and to understand and to empower us and to pour resources into us and to help us get up. But they're really just there to hone in on what you've been going through and use that pain against you. Some people like you when you're in darkness and in pain. And they don't like the discovery of who you are when you come into the light.
So what was that journey like for you, right? Like oftentimes they'll reach out to others to help us do the thing that we need to do ourselves. When you recognize that you were the holder of the key to unlock the darkness for you, what was that like for you?
I would really started with understanding that there were multiple keys. There were multiple keys. I had multiple doors that I could unlock. And in my dark space, the first thing that I had to do was sit there and say, okay, well, where the hell am I? How did that? Like, and we started, like, we're talking about unloading, but really in that dark space, it was very scary because I did not know where to go. In the dark, just think about it. When you close your eyes right now, you don't, if you put your hand, unless you know everything that's around you, you don't always know where to go. So in my dark space, I had to learn how to sit still and listen because I couldn't always see. But now I had to start listening to what I was feeling. And that's what it really started for me. Listening and not so much of doing and not so much of moving.
So I want to come back to something you said in a minute after we bring Heather in here. When you talked about when you're sitting in the dark, having to know what's around you in order, I need to come back to that. We got to unpack that a little bit. Heather, so what was it like for you when you recognize that I'm sitting in the dark of my own internal stuff and no one else can do the work for me?
That's so very personal and deep to me. I found myself in that dark space because of grief, a deep sorrow for losing someone. My best friend at the time, she died from complications from childbirth. And then at the same time, I was going through a divorce, my first husband, who I believed to be my soulmate at the time. So it wasn't anything that anybody else could say to me that could stop my spiral. And I knew I was spiraling downward into this deeper, darker space. And I kept a mask on. I kept my mask on because I didn't want the questions. I didn't want to have to explain, even though people saw it and they knew it, but they didn't know how deep it was. And people expected me to be strong. They expected me to overcome because I was the strong person for the other people who were grieving over her loss. So I was strong for them, but there was no one to be strong for me. And I couldn't handle it. And there was nobody that could help me that I thought I could talk to. So I was the strongest person in my circle. So my strength everybody else leaned on, but I didn't have it for myself. And so that was the first thing to recognize. I knew I had on a mask, but I wasn't ready to take it off. And I actually spiraled down to the depth of that dark space, and I died by suicide. And the thing that brought me from that place, one was the silence, because I was at a space where I felt nothing. There was no pain, there was nothing, but then I was also nothing. I was at that deepest part of that dark space. And it was like Dr. Shenetta said, that it was the listening. It was what I heard that drew me from that space, from that empty, dark space. But I didn't recognize when I came out that I had left a lot of that pain, the physical pain behind. I didn't bring that back with me. And so I didn't recognize, it took some time for me to do that, to recognize that the pain that I felt before, I didn't, because I actually was listening. And what guided me was listening to my inner guider. And so that guidance that I got became a physical expression through a cardinal, which is while I was listening to the song of the cardinal. So something very simple, something very unexpected was my guide from that dark place to help me see life a lot differently than I did before.
So I want to talk a little bit about, you both mentioned, right, like hearing the voice, finally hearing your voice, right? So many times, I know I'm not alone, women are guilty of turning that voice down, right? Out of fear of what it's saying, even when it's speaking truth to your life. You continue to turn it down out of the fear, right? Like, I'm going to have to do something with this voice and the messages that it's giving me if I keep listening. So I'm going to turn it down. Where did you find the strength and the courage to turn that volume up so loud that it knocked out the chaos of everything else and made you listen? What was that courageous moment like for you? Dr. Shenetta.
I'm gonna start with this. First and foremost, don't listen to all the voices in your head. The voices will set you up and you'll be in pain, more pain in a little bit. And that was my first thing. When I said I was sitting there in the dark and I couldn't see anything, but I had to listen. I thank God, because I didn't know then that it was the Holy Spirit that was leading me and guiding me through the pain. And that's the voice that we have to tap into. If I listen to my voice at that time sounded like the voice of everybody else, saying that I had no worth, I had no value, I could not do it, I belong there, I deserve this, I could not get up, I did not have what I did not have the tools to be successful. You have no business looking at this, you don't belong in that room, you're not going forward. So I couldn't listen to that voice. I also couldn't listen to the people that were around me all the time, because they were in a broken place. So in the darkness, you tend to gravitate to people that in that same dark space as you, and praying that somebody give you a little bit of light. But most of the time we're getting that false light. So I had to tune out those voices. And once I was able to tune out the chaos, you just said, when you have to, something that's going to be stronger than everything else. The only voice that was stronger than all the pain that I was God's. That's the only voice that was stronger. And that's not like that for everybody else. And I didn't have that true committed relationship at that time. That's something that grew later on. But I can tell you, it was the seeds that were planted, and the Holy Spirit will speak to you so that you can stop hurting yourself and burying yourself in further darkness, because you won't listen to a new voice. You need a new voice.
Absolutely love that. One of the things that is consistent every time we have this conversation is, as Black women, we understand the power of our faith. And we understand the position that God will put us in to hear him, to move us from darkness into light, to move us in from hate to love. Like, whatever that movement is going to require a God moment. And I love that that is a thing that continues to unite one conversation to the next, is our belief and understanding that this is bigger than us. So I really loved, right? Like, you put the spin on it, right? Like, before you get the power of your own voice in the right way, sometimes the voices that you're speaking, right, are working against you.
They do.
What happens though when you discover the power in it to disrupt? Heather, what was that moment like for you?
It actually, much like was shared, it took a moment. It took a moment for me to take it all in, to realize that I was back from that dark place. It didn't hit me right away, but I stood there and I listened. I listened to the song of the cardinal. It kept making itself available and aware to me. Every time I took a move, it would show up. And so I started to really pay attention. Something deeper had to get my attention, and it was spirit. It just was in a different form, because God knows how to reach you when in ways that you need it, that's unique to you. So that was that was the moment where I actually started to get curious as to why this particular bird showed up. And every time I asked the question about the bird, I was actually asking the question about myself. So why did this bird show up? So why did I show up? Why is it following me? Why am I looking at myself differently? It just kept going. The question I kept asking about the bird was actually my own question. Wow. And it helped me to navigate that space. Then I started to write everything down, all my thoughts, my curiosities. I wrote myself a new script. And so from those questions, everything about what I do as a personal change coach emerged. So the activities, I was given literal activities to do to awaken this new journey that I was on, this new person that I had become. And so all of those activities is a lot of what I do with my clients. We go through these activities, and it's so amazing to see it, because you see variations of it too in other places and other spaces. But the true process is to go through it yourself and own it, just like we do our amazing.
So what's the benefit of journaling?
Oh my.
Oh, you saved some people. You saved some people some ears. I know I know for myself, I journal not just for a good position, but sometimes just to get things out. Because sometimes everything that's on my mind, I don't need to let another person have. And I've learned that in the emotional state, because we're going to be human first, I want to write some things out. And I can get it. I don't have to have the conversation with the person, but it definitely has to get off of my chest, so I'm not harboring it.
Come on, Crystal.
I just needed her to repeat that. You say it again. Everything that, what did you say? Everybody does it. You don't need to give it to everybody else or something. Say that again.
Everything that I'm thinking, I don't need to give to everybody. And if I say exactly what I'm thinking in every single moment, oh, it's going to be some hurt people out here, because I'd be a hurt person trying to hurt those people that have hurt me. So it's like the bit in the mouth. I heard that in my service. We need a bit in our mouth to, that as they guide us. So I need that bit in my mouth to say Shenetta, and I'll tell myself Nat. And I'll write.
and I lifted that back up because it's so important, because we live in this culture now where, I'm just keeping it 100. Yeah.
No, because you're not, even when you're angry, you're not keeping it 100. When you're angry, you're emotional and you're not even thinking. So logically, are you genuinely keeping it 100? Are you genuinely speaking from a place of hurt, pain, and anger? Right. Are things rational? I've just learned to stop always speaking out of anger, because out of that anger, it's just a matter of attack, and we can attack enough. And all this keeping it 100, and this is just who I am. You keeping it 100 with somebody else should never take away somebody's power to be 100 in who they are.
So I remember very early, over 15 years ago, when I started what I call myself being committed to journaling, right? I was in such a dark, dark place that the words that I was writing was not even real, right? And so going back years later and reading those, I found that I was journaling more for the life that I wanted than what I actually was living in that moment, right? So I was telling myself either lies or I was forecasting where I needed to be, right? And so journaling can give you all of that. But you have to have enough, right? Like for me, life is a dimmer. It's not a switch on and off. The darkness, right? Like it's a dimmer. And if I can slowly move it up, that I don't get so overwhelmed by the brightness, right? Like that I even run from my own greatness. But I had to, in the moment, like I was writing, like that, none of that was me. None of that was me. I was so afraid of, right? Like I was journaling another story. So either again, I was so caught in it, or I was forecasting. So how are we having conversations, Heather, with our clients where we're coaching around how to be how to use journaling really effectively that will help bring you out of that darkness?
So I find that that a lot of people don't consider themselves writers. So when you start journaling, you think you have to have proper grammar, you have to have a certain sentence structure, you have to have, you can only say these things and not these things. So my suggestion is to first date it. And then second thing I ask people to do is share whatever inspired the thought. So you can go back and find your breadcrumbs. And so I look at journaling really as finding your breadcrumbs. So one, you're actually putting those crumbs down, those nuggets of information, your good, bad, otherwise, you get to write that down. And then if you put the inspiration of where it came from, or what made you think about it, or what happened to you, or what's happening through you, you actually have a record of that. And so those breadcrumbs eventually lead you back to the truth, back to the light, back to the treasure. And it leads you back to the fact that you actually are the treasure. You're the gift, you're the present, and you're the treasure. But you may not know that until you go through a process. And so again, the next step is it takes you through a process of understanding. And then even if it's not understood at that time when you're writing it down, you don't know why you feel this way, whatever the inspiration is, it will lead you back to your truth.
I love that. So Facebook, I told you, these women are going to share some tools and resources and ways of thinking that can change your life. Thank you, Heather. I know many of us, right, have 100 journals in our home where we've picked up, put down, and did not know what to do. So thank you for sharing that framing that allows the listeners to really think about, how do I make this the right kind of resource for me? So Dr. Shenetta, I need to come back, right? Like this visual, because one of the other conversations that happens every single time we come together is our tribe, right? Like, so you need to make sure that when you are in that dark place, what am I feeling? What's familiar? What do I know? How important in this journey is it that we're paying attention to who's in our lives and the roles that they're playing?
It's going to be very important. I'm going to speak to the person that does not have anybody. I did not have a lot of people in my circle. You hear a lot of time, your tribe is your vibe. Unfortunately, for some people, they don't have a tribe. And so if you're going through some dark places, you're going to be alone. And in those dark places, sometimes you are isolated from individuals because God needs to work with you. A lot of times for me, I was always attaching myself to other people, feeling though I needed this big tribe to be able to accomplish the one thing that I was called to. And God said, I didn't need you to need all. You didn't need all these people. I needed just you and me. So in my dark place, when I was isolated and I was separated, and then I was rejuvenated, and then I could be inspirational to somebody else. Oh, that was really good. So it's important to make sure that you do have a connection with somebody else, but you have to make sure you have the right connection. As women, I find that we're always looking still to connect with other women, but sometimes it's not coming from a place of purity. And so when you're in a dark place, connecting with individuals that are genuinely pure and they genuinely understand and they can genuinely just listen. And it's not about judgment. And it's not about them getting the glory from helping you. And it's not about anything else other than seeing you come out of that dark place in any way, form, or fashion that is healthy for you. That's what it's about. When I was talking about being there and you're in that dark place and you can't always see, but you can hear. It's the phone calls, the messages that you may receive that just encourage you. Everybody does not have to constantly be in your face, but just to know that there is somebody there that you can lean on if you're necessary, because as you're always the strong person, Heather, I know it would have been amazing to have somebody say, sis, break, because I got you.
Right.
And we just don't have that. And it's not because we don't want that, but as so many Black women have been taught, that you got to stand on your own. Even in the darkness, you stand on your own. What happens in your house stays in your house. You can't speak about it because then it becomes street gossip. There's tea to everybody else. But genuinely, in the dark places is where we can actually take a moment to evaluate our surroundings and who is genuinely around us. Sometimes I don't need you to go pick up the phone and run to somebody else. I just need you to sit in it. And it's so uncomfortable. Sitting in your dark place is so uncomfortable, sitting in brokenness. But when you do that, think about that healing journey. My journaling is different. I need to identify and get out everything that's negative that I'm thinking, because I don't need it to harbor here, because those thoughts become actions and I don't want to do it. Let me write this out, and then let me figure out, as you were speaking about, Heather, what's the root causes? Where's this coming from? Because this is my story right now. My story may be that I'm on the street. My story may be that I'm on drugs. My story may be that I'm selling my body. My story may be that I'm an exotic dancer. That was my story. My story may be that I don't have anybody. That may be my story. But that may be my story today, but that's not necessarily my future. So what do I want differently from what I'm writing today? What does my future look like? That's that forecasting you spoke about, Michele. You have to be able to forecast sometimes in a dark place, because if you don't, you'll stay right there. It's called hope. So in our dark places, what are we hoping for? What do we want on the other side? And that's where it really comes from, having those genuine tribe connections, where you can see another woman like Crystal that helped individuals that came out of financial poverty. I can meet a woman like Heather that actually came out and she was having suicide ideation. Now I know it's okay for me not to be okay. And it's okay that if I may be suicidal today, I can reach out for help. 1-800-273-TALK.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, right, like we always have that one person who's the strong one in the group, and we always like, oh, they're good, right? Because they demonstrated the ability through our eyes, right? Like I'm on the outside looking in, like Heather's got it, she's strong, and we forget, right? So what is it like, Heather? How do you find it in you to be able to say, no, right? Like I got to do some me work. Because when you're the strong one, you're carrying all of the stuff, whether you realize it or not. We're carrying all of this stuff, and we can't pour from empty cups. And people keep expecting the Heather that they've been used to for so long.
That's so poignant. I have learned that I have a threshold. I recognize my threshold. I recognize it in others too. And I ask for help. I'm like, I've met my capacity, and I, of course, you start off by sharing that with someone you trust. But if enough people are asking you, how are you doing? My answer is not always good. I'm not. If I'm not good, I'm like, I'm struggling. I'm struggling right now. I got to deal with this, this, and this. And of course, people are not asking you that often because they really want your truth. They're asking out of being polite. And so, but if I'm feeling and you ask me, I'm going to tell you, I committed to myself that if I'm asked and I'm going through, then I'm going to share that, because I don't know if that person was asking because they know that I'm going through and they have whatever I need to help me get through, or they're just being polite. And what happens after that tells you if they're just being polite or if they really see that you're going through something, because we can also be blinded by our pride. And so it's one of our delicious strongholds. Mine in particular was control. And so that particular stronghold would prevent me from getting help, asking for help, or even receiving it, because I had to control how that help came. And so being able to recognize my threshold and recognize what stronghold I'm standing in, where I won't ask for help, or I feel like I can't, or I don't, that's the second step I take. Okay, what stronghold are you struggling in right now? Because I know that there are 5 of them, because that was what I was shown on my journey that a lot of us as women are going through. But I think that's an important piece of understanding that we all need to have. But I want to step back a minute, because I want to talk a little bit into what we were talking about in finding your way when you're in the dark, and the other women that are strategically placed in your life. I call that the collective we. And I use the spelling of woman or women. I take that W and the E, and I have embraced that when I look at women. It's not all the letters in the word women. It is key letters. It's the W and it's the E. It's not all the letters in that word. So it's not everybody that's in your collective that's necessarily part of your collective we. But those 2 elements, when they're there, and one, it's a spiritual connection, so you can feel it. It is an active engagement, so you can hear it, and you can also hear it spoken to you. So that collective we energy is amazing. And you know it when you see it. You know it when you're in it. Your hair stands up on your arms. It stands up on the back of your neck. You're feeling that energy and that energetic connection to help you to understand that this is what you need at this time. These are the people who you need to surround you at that time. When we start paying attention to that and giving intention to that, we do our part, they do our part, and we can move this process of healing and moving through those dark spaces together.
I love it. I love it.
And everybody was nodding as she said that, like,
Right.
so we've all been there and experienced that. Doctor, go back to when you said listening to what you were feeling. What does that mean? What does that look like?
Listening to what I was feeling. What it looks like is genuinely being real with yourself and taking off my mask. Why am I bothered, or why am I upset? Why am I feeling this way? And being able to give yourself a genuine answer, because guess what? Nobody's there. Nobody can look at you. Nobody can judge you in your own space, and really just identifying it. So taking the time. I really genuinely started getting books on emotions and started reading some of them. One of my favorite books is Anger Management. I did a workbook for kids. As an adult, I did that workbook because a lot of times those are things that I'm able to relate with. Like, this is one of my favorite books. I'll show you all here. This is my anger management book for kids. As an adult, I still go back to this book because it talks about all the different emotions that we have to work through. And if we're expecting our youth to be able to do this, we as adults should be able to do this. And I didn't get coping skills as a child. And school, they didn't give it to me.
Right.
And when I went to college, they still didn't give me none unless you were studying psychology and you were studying that to try to get your degree. So you sometimes get tuned into it for real. Okay. I am the child, that the woman that is from the hood, that didn't have health insurance, that have gone through bullying, that have gone through all different obstacles, from rape to family denial, from my father being incarcerated, just going through losing everything, from being out in the streets. So a lot of the general resources that people have, I didn't have access to. And that's what just a lot of women just are going through genuinely in America, period, especially Black women. We don't have access to a lot of things. Healthcare disparities are just there. And so identifying my feelings, first of all, I had to figure out what a feeling was. What was a feeling? What was an emotion? Because a lot of times we're told not to feel. You get over it. You don't have time to deal with these things. You shouldn't be worried about that. People talk about you get over it. It doesn't matter what they say. Well, that's a daggone lie, because it carries with you and it does shape you if you allow it to shape you in a negative way. Until you start listening to something different, that negative voice is now gone. And now you can start filling yourself with some positive things and identifying what you feel. So feeling it. Damn, I'm angry. Why am I so angry? And what does this feel like? And where is it coming from? I can feel my body, the same hairs and the same tensions that we've had. I can feel my body getting hot. Where's this coming from? You know, I feel like little lines of where's this coming from? And then what do I want differently from this?
Yeah, there's so much power in naming those emotions and then unpacking them and not skirting over them. It is so powerful. So we don't, right? Like, this is a journey. We don't arrive, right? Light is on fully all the time for the rest of our lives. And at different points, as the light continues to brighten inside of us, we discover, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I ever allowed that. I can't believe I ever tolerated that. How do we practice self-forgiveness? For all of the bullshit, right? That we accept it when we recognize, right? In those moments of lightness, I can't believe I let them I can't believe how do we practice self-forgiveness?
I'll say this is if you say to practice self-forgiveness for me, as a woman that have allowed a man to put his hands on her and stayed with him. The way I allowed myself self-forgiveness is to realize that I was broken. I give myself grace. But how do you give yourself something that you're not aware of? So you can't give yourself self-forgiveness if you don't even really recognize what forgiveness is. What is true forgiveness for someone? Forgiveness for someone is a saying that I forgive you. And genuinely, when they leave, you genuinely don't forgive because you're still angry as if it just happened. No, it's just that understanding what it is. How do you genuinely forgive? Well, you know that you've forgiven when you don't feel the same pains and pressures when that subject comes up. When you're not as angry, you're not emotional, and you're not connected to it. So the way that I believe that we start forgiving ourselves is, one, saying that we're human and we didn't have to have it perfect. 2, we're not the only one that have made this mistake. 3, we're not there anymore. 4, it's okay to not be okay. 5, it's just like riding a bike. You have to learn how to pedal. Then you learn how to go a little bit faster. Now you can go up the hill. Now you might be able to do it and do tricks on the bike. It's a process, but it's also something that you got to tell yourself every day, because staying in this place of forgiveness is not always easy.
Right. So everybody, she got to number 3 and I was like, ooh, she wants them to write it down. Let's record it. Telling myself and I'm sharing with you. You get to go back and hear it, write it down and sit with it, because there is a process.
It's a process, and it's an everyday. It's never going to just stop. I mean, Heather, I'm sure you tell your clients on a regular basis that just because you start your healing process today, it'll be 3, 4, 5 years later on, and you still could be going through a different level of healing, because there are levels and layers to it. I healed from domestic violence from 4 or 5 years ago. Just had a conversation yesterday and was triggered.
Right.
It takes time. And I may be triggered later on, but it's just a matter of me being able to say, when I was triggered, Shenetta, you're safe. You're not in that space. And things are not going to turn out the way that they did before.
You know, and
how do you practice?
I was just going to share that one of the my breadcrumbs that I had to come to, one of the truths that I had to find in the midst of my journey was that my trust was broken. And so for me to recognize how my trust was broken, that means that some expectation that I had was unmet. And whoever was the perpetrator, even if it was myself, I had to identify that. And I had to do it without judgment. So judgment to me is saying something was good, bad, right, or wrong. It is because I was there at that time and they happened to be there at that time. I'm saying personally, what skills you have, what resilience you have, all of those things happen at that time. And just like children, we carry our childlike mindset into adulthood. I mean, I have lots of stories of how I've done that over and over again, but it was the expectation that I had, because this is what I grew up expecting. I grew up expecting the hero to show up. And if I was in the midst of a crisis, then somebody was supposed to show up and save me, because that's what we were taught. And so that expectation means that my trust was broken, because whoever was supposed to show up and do what I needed them to do, or I expected them to do, that trust was broken, and they may or may not even know that that was the case.
Right.
It's just something I'm holding because I have an expectation of you that I never expressed to you to give you that expectation. I think we do that a lot with friendships. We say we know what friendship is. I'm your friend, and when you slept with my boyfriend, then you were no longer my friend. Well, you broke my trust. And we may not have even had a conversation about my expectation as a friend is that, that somebody I'm seeing or dating, we may not even have established that. But my acceptable culture says that this is what we do all the time.
So that's the girl code.
But if it's not explained, that's what you do with friendships. There is an expectation of what a friendship is and how far somebody's going to go, what boundaries are set. And we don't often do that. We don't speak those things out loud. It's an expectation. And when you break that trust, I'm kind of responsible for that too. So being able to forgive means that I'm owning whatever happened at that moment, where I was at that moment, what could I have done differently? What is a part of my mindset, fixed mindset from childhood that I took into this situation or my relationship or my understanding of what forgiveness really is? Was it my fault? Are we looking at fault? All of those things have to be considered. And those are the things that you want to journal. Like what was I taught about this in my childhood? I call that the meridian path. So it's going back into those crossroads or left turns when it should have been a right turn in your life that you can recall. You can go back and look at those twists and turns. And so it's really important to journal so that you can capture those breadcrumbs so that you're able to properly forgive yourself and understand what happened as so not to repeat it as an adult. Because that's what we do. We hold on to it as an adult, and that expectation is still there because we've never taken our childlike mind into an adult thought process. And so we're left with that. So everybody is breaking my trust and breaking my heart when I have an expectation that they have no idea that I have. So this
It's
brings my side of things to journal to help with that forgiveness piece, to help us to assess where we are.
It's so interesting that you say that. Something that I started practicing was, if someone has made me feel a certain kind of way, right? Because they didn't do something that I expected them to do, right? Or, you know, I take whatever that situation is, and before I address it with somebody else, I look at, okay, why do I feel a certain kind of way? What happened? What part did I play in that? What did this incident trigger? And so what I'm feeling right now doesn't have anything to do with this person, but has everything to do with something that happened in the past. And what I have found in doing that is 9 times out of 10, my issue isn't with that person right now, with whatever it was that they did, right? And I don't even have to go address it with them because it had nothing to do with them in the first place. So it was definitely one of those things, looking back at me, and I showed up for that past experience and I'm still carrying it. And why? Why is it making me feel that certain kind of way? How do I get over it? And so, yeah, it is a ownership in that piece. And then when I go and I address it that way, not only do I 9 times out of 10 not have to bring it up with that person, but then it's healed in me.
Yes.
And when it's healed, when it's genuinely healed, you won't have to attack anybody.
Right.
You genuinely won't have to attack anybody in that healing process. And I would say a part of that forgiveness, you're understanding that the offense is not the person. We tie a lot of events and traumas and pains to people, and it's the events that have happened. That's not necessarily that person. That person is not what they've done. It's the events that have been a part of their actions. So, but that's a deeper level of healing, when you're genuinely going deeper and a deeper level of understanding and a deeper relationship with God to be able to do that, because some of the things that we're talking about, you genuinely will not be able to do without a genuine relationship with a higher being, whether you're praying to the earth or to God or to Muhammad, whomever. You need some help. Don't go out here trying to forgive everything and everybody on your own. You'd be out here to drive you so crazy. Like, I tried to forgive and then it didn't work, and I forgave and they came back and did the same thing. And then you'd be mad because you got to keep forgiving. So you say, how many times do I have to keep forgiving? How many times do I have to forgive myself? How many times you really got to forgive yourself?
The good word said 7 times 70. And if I can practice that with others, I'm certainly going to learn to practice it with myself, right? Because in that dark place, we forget to instruct, require people to treat us a certain way. And then we sit in our frustration because they're treating them the way we've given them permission through our silence and acceptance to do that. So finding the power of your voice, right? To allow into your life the things that are only going to work for you is a deep and hard discovery, because we're so fearful that we're going to lose something that isn't even good for us in the first place, right? Like that level of fear and that level of darkness, because of the traumas that we are holding, that we have not named and unpacked, is costing us our very lives. So part of this has to require self-care. What do we do for self-care?
Everything. No, I'm serious. No, seriously. Self-care for me begins with my word. In the mornings, whether I'm on vacation at home, it's not just affirmations, but just confirmations that I go through every single day for myself. That comes to massages, that goes on trips to the beach. I like the water. The water is my healing spot. You'll always find Shenetta at a beach. Always, don't they, Crystal? They always find me at a beach. If it's water, I'm there. That's my healing journey. And meditation, some people, self-care is gonna look like working out, exercise, eating healthy, not speaking negative words over yourself for one day. That's self-care.
Yes.
That's some genuine self-care. Saying that you need them, saying no, that's self-care.
Full sentence.
That's self-care. What else you got for them, Heather? I know you got some health care. I go to the rage room too. That's my self-care. I love a rage room.
That's awesome. So kind of the way that I would I advise people to do is have a list of the things that that you love, you want to do, you want to experience, have a wish list. And so when one of my best friends, we both turned 40 in the same year, we could created our list of 40. Our list of 40 had to do with 40 things we always wanted to do or experience. We had like crazy things on there, like dance naked under the moonlight. We had take a motorcycle safety class, get a pair of jeans. That was on my list. I had to get a pair of blue jeans because I don't wear jeans. Have a massage. She always wanted to have her hair twisted naturally. And so we got through so I'm in my list of 40. We're still on our list. We're heading to 60. We're still on our list of 40 list. But it gave me something to look forward to, something that we could always do together, but something that was just for us, that was almost like advanced planning. And I guess this was really before the whole bucket list thing showing up on this scene. We were just talking about, I always wanted to do this. And so our self-care became the process of getting to the thing that you really wanted to experience. And so making that list, I think, is everything, so that you have something to look forward to. And so that is a really healthy way to kind of unpack some things, make that wish list. Then you start with the affirmations of it and the things that you need to be able to do to lead up to receiving or doing something on that list, and the accomplishment you feel with completing one of those wish lists. Some people, it's travel. I want to go to Africa. I want to go to Italy. All of those different things. That's part of, to me, self-care. There is something out there that you have for yourself that you want to live and experience. If you have that list, just making that list is a part of your self-care, because the imagination is a powerful tool. And so you can imagine it. You have to imagine the clothes that you need to wear on that amazing trip to Italy, the body type that you want to have when you go. I mean, it just adds to so many things that lead to your commitment to yourself. And so those things leading to the commitment of the things that you want to do and want to live and want to express, I think that's such an important part of self-care. Using your imagination. Imagine what it feels like once you have that wonderful massage, or you kick in the white sands, when you stop around in the water and the waves. What does that feel like? You have to use some imagination to get there. And so that part of our imagination is part of the self-care that we have that doesn't cost us anything. It doesn't cost you anything to vision it, to express it, and to work toward that as a goal. I think that's really an important part of self-care. Make a wish. Make a wish.
So Michele, we're adding vegan donuts in Brooklyn to that list.
Correct. Correct. Yes.
I'm just saying.
Yes. So, yeah, once again, the fastest hour of the day. This conversation. So, right, like we're getting a lot of affirmations, confirmations in the chat that this conversation is really resonating with folks. Because as Black women, we do everything but pay attention to what's happening inside of us. We do everything but disrupt the narrative, the stories that we have been told and that we tell ourselves to get through. What it's like to sit in that darkness, in the discomfort of that, name it and begin to unpack it, to discover what it's like that you deserve to live in the light. You deserve to not be burdened and to carry all of the things that we continue to carry. So very grateful to hear from both of you, right? Your stories and the tools and the resources, right? Like Dr. Shenetta, when you lifted up that book, every year, my children are 27 and 31, will be 32. Every year for Christmas, I still give them a children's book. Because there's nothing more powerful than the words that we once wanted to teach, instruct, and share with our children that are so more applicable when they have more space to hear it and receive it. So I'm going to go and get that workbook.
Yes,
Yeah.
Samantha Snowden. I'm giving this to my daughter. So my daughter's 27, so we share that. So I love Samantha Snowden's books. This is absolutely amazing. Another self-care is color therapy. I like to dance. I also like color therapy. It helps you get it out. And it's just a matter of recognizing, just really, really understanding. In the darkest places, our discovery. In the darkest places, our healing. In the darkest places, are new stories. In the darkest places, sometimes you get to bury some things that don't need to come back out.
It's scary, and do it anyway.
And it's going to be scary, but life is going to be scary. Here's the deal. Life is scary, period. That's just not going to change. I mean, you go outside, you go try to buy some milk, it might be $7. That's scary. It might be $20 a gallon. That's scary. But at the end of the day, we know that we are equipped to do it. I think that for us as Black women, the biggest thing that we need to understand is that we belong in the room. And we need to know that regardless of our story, regardless of the darkness, regardless of our pain, we still have purpose. And I think that that's what we take away from some of our sisters when we downplay their trauma, or when they're in their darkness, we act like that's where they have to stay. And when they come up out of it, stop reminding them of their darkness, get out their business.
Right. Yeah. And even more than, elevating to the next level, not only do we deserve to be in the room, we deserve to be at the table.
Come on.
And when they don't want to make space, we will create our own. Heather, how can folks find you?
You can find me on most social media, Instagram, Facebook, ironically. But you can also visit me on my website, which is Yourinspiredjourney.com. You can Google me and find me that way. Grab a book that you may relate to for that sacred space. I have a book called Patch of Grass. For grief, I have a book called Cardinal and Red Dress. I have a book for relationships, 100 Ways to Keep Your Woman. I have 25 Ways to Keep Your Man. I have the survey if you're looking for the
whole nother conversation.
If you need the tools to have a right conversation to vet the men that you're dating or interested in, get the survey. So you know some deeper questions to ask to help you make your decision a little bit faster. If you're basing it totally on looks, you might want to get that book. So feel free, Google, reach out to me. I love having the conversations. I love the authentic conversations like the ones that and the gifts that you all have given of wisdom and inspiration this evening. I thank you so much, Dr. Shenetta. I thank you so much, Michele, Crystal, just inspiring and soul food, just absolute soul food. So thank you for feeding me again this evening. And anytime I have a chance to connect with you, I so appreciate it. So, and you can also reach me by phone at 313-759-7855. So however you reach out to me. Excited to have the conversation and share the tools.
Amen.
Dr. Shenetta, how can folks find you?
You can find me. I'm not hard to find. You can follow me on social media. It is Shenetta Malkia. My name is very unique. And so Shenetta Malkia is on Facebook, is on Instagram, on LinkedIn. You can visit thepmsofthecity.com for all your real estate needs. If you're needing help with suicide or anti-bullying for youth or young adults, please follow us at Empowerment Essence. We are both on Instagram as well as Facebook and Twitter. You can follow us for resources on how to identify a person that is going through suicide ideation, how to connect them with the resource, and how you can be a support system to them. If you need coaching, you need a mentor, you can reach me at dearbroken.com, and you can always call us at 240-601-3150. Empowerment Essence, one life saved is one life given, and you belong in the room. So thank you, Queens, for allowing me to join you this evening. Powerful.
I have all of the goosebumps in all of the
I
world.
know.
My goodness. My goodness. You want one more time, right? We get to be in space where we are disrupting, dismantling, and tearing apart the narrative that Black women aren't amazing. Crystal.
So this is what Amazing Women Speak is just supposed to be, lifting up super dope women who are leading the charge and helping to change lives all over this world for Black women. I love it. I appreciate you guys. I thank you for being here. you all both are definitely amazing. I celebrate you in your goodness for all that you've done, for all that you do, and for your journeys, because they are unique and amazing. And yet there's people out there going through the same things. And so I always appreciate, Michele and I both appreciate the fact that you all are so candid in your stories and telling your stories. So I thank you for being here. I honor again and then celebrate you. And Amazing Women Speak is it's sponsored by the Amazing Woman Network, which was created to unite and empower Black women globally, focusing on our pillars of reclaiming our personal power, mind, body, and spirit, reclaiming our financial power, and increasing our social involvement. And every Sunday when we come together, I think we help somebody reclaim their power. And that, to me, is what this is all about. So please like us on Facebook at the Amazing Woman Network and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Amazing Women Speak. And you can watch any past episodes, because I guarantee you there will be something in there that will help you get to your next level, that you can relate to, that you will feel was designed specifically for you. I am grateful. Join us next Sunday when the topic will be your comfort zone isn't even comfortable. It's time to, I know, right? It is time to move past that. I am grateful for you all for being here. Michele, I could not do this without you and couldn't think of a better person to do it with. So I'm so grateful for you. My name is Crystal Gunn. I am a Black woman and I own my amazing.
Ooh, Crystal Gunn. So very grateful. I will say it every week. I will say it when it's recorded, and I will say it in rooms where you do not exist, that you continue to provide a platform. And you said, I think, my friend, changing lives of women who do not even have yet to have the privilege of being in your physical space. This platform is doing what God intended it to do and required your obedience, and you continue to be obedient. So very grateful for the way that you show up. Now, you keep teeing them up this way, you're gonna have to find a new co-host, because I need to be in the room listening and taking, it is so hard. These women are so amazing. And it's been an amazing weekend for me that God continues to tee things up and allows me to be in spaces where I'm watching folks knock it out of the park, and I get to reap the benefit of that.
Absolutely.
So very grateful that I get to share this platform where one more time God has showed up and showed out, providing both me, right? Like this gift tonight of sharing space with the doctor and with Heather. You women are absolutely amazing. You saved somebody's life tonight. I'm clear. And I'm grateful for your story. I'm grateful for your gifts and your willingness to share it. My name is Michele Harper. I am a Black woman and I own my amazing. Heather.
I am Hetheru, personal change coach and a Black woman, and I own and honor my amazing.
Yes. Doctor.
I am Dr. Shenetta Malkia, and I own my amazing. I am your empowered life queen. You belong in the room. Let's go.
Thank you so much. We will see you next week at 7 p.m. Enjoy the rest of your day, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you.